Hi everybody, my name is Young Kim. I'm a professional horn player and I also run a YouTube channel by the same name. Normally, I post contents mainly for my Korean viewers as well as my performance videos. But today I would like to discuss a special topic and I've brought in a special guest to help with that. His name is Michal Emanovsky. He's the associate principal horn player of the Seoul Philharmonic Orchestra in South Korea. As many of you are aware or have firsthand felt the experience of COVID-19 around the world as our work is reduced and the chance to perform is becoming non-existent for the next season, Korea is actually being reported as one of the most safe and leading the charge against COVID-19 pandemic. So from my knowledge, the Seoul Philharmonic as well as other Korean orchestras are making the effort to slowly go back to performing on regular basis. And so we will talk about that as well as Misha's personal background and how he ended up in Korea and working abroad in Asia. So here's Misha Ivanovsky. Hello.
Hey, thanks for having me as your first guest.
Yeah. Uh, yeah, so could you just briefly tell us about like where you're from and how you're trained and how you ended up in South Korea?
Right. So I'm from the Czech Republic, formerly Czechoslovakia. I was there until I was about 17 years old, and then while walking through my conservatory, which is the high school equivalent of a music school there, I came across a poster that advertised 1 year scholarship to Idlewild Arts Academy. And I wasn't really thinking of going, but my teacher said, "Hey guys, you should try this." So I recorded a tape, sent it in, and I was lucky enough to get that 1 year spot that turned into 10 years in the States. So after
Wow.
Idlewild, where I studied with Kurt Snyder, who was a studio musician, recorded a ton of soundtracks,
Oh,
including Robin Hood and such. Um, the money was great. They helped me out a lot in the school. And then I went to Oberlin for a year, again
okay.
because of money. And then, kind of a strange story. I came across a girl in one of the practice rooms playing French horn. Her
Huh.
name was Natasha Mitchell, and I said, "Hey, I haven't seen you around here. Uh, are you a horn player?" And she said, "No, I'm just an amateur." And we kind of played together. And she said, "Hey, did you try to apply for Curtis?" And I said, "No, I wouldn't get in, and expensive." Um, and she said, "Well, my parents live just about 2 blocks away from Curtis, and you can stay with them.
Oh wow.
So just go and audition." And she really helped me out, and I flew in, and there was Myron Bloom sitting in the audition room, and I
Wow.
in the audition he goes, "Okay, you sound pretty good." He's playing Alexander, which is strange. "What mouthpiece are you playing?" And I go, "This thing." And he goes, "No, no, no, no. That's not good." And he pulled out like the biggest cup. It was a DM1 or something. This gigantic mouthpiece. He's like, "Okay, try
Yeah.
this." In the audition.
Wow.
So I put the mouthpiece in the horn and I just played. And he goes, "Much better." So I got in, and then I spent 4 years at Curtis, and then I did 2 more years at Juilliard. Before that, I also studied with Ashby. There was
Oh, nice.
2 other years at Curtis, and then
Hmm.
with Bill Purvis at Juilliard for my master's.
Wow.
That I went straight to Korea, to Daejeon. I auditioned for a
Okay.
job in America for the conductor. Then I
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
went to have a trial over there playing Dvorak's New World Symphony.
Mm.
And they said, "Okay, come as soon as possible." And that was about 5 months before graduation.
Wow, perfect.
I didn't even do my graduation ceremony. I just flew out to South Korea to Daejeon and started playing right away as a principal there.
Wow.
And after about a year and a half, I left and I ended up at Seoul Philharmonic, where I've been for the past a lot of years, 14, 15.
Oh wow, it's been that long.
Yeah, so it's
Wow, I had no
right. I
idea.
came in 2004, 2006. Yeah, 14 years.
Oh.
Wow.
Ever since, so I hope that's fast enough.
Yeah. Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, that is no, that's great. So you've had like tons of different teachers actually throughout your training, like a variety.
Yeah, I really think, I got a little bit of something from everybody, and my
Mm.
a bit strange, I guess, because it's a mix of Europe and America, and now a bit of Korea. So
Well, I mean, that sounds like, that sounds like Asia in general. It's neither purely European or purely American, and I think there's a generally an effort to come up with their own culture, I guess, in terms of horn culture. Yeah. So, how was it adjusting to Korean culture? I mean, did you know anything about Korea before coming, or did you like what was your like background knowledge prior? And then were there any like big like a cultural shock that you felt when you started working?
So I was with a Korean American girlfriend for about 3 years, so I got
Okay.
a bit of taste for the Korean culture, but no,
Uh-huh.
I didn't know much. I read a book that was called Culture Shock Korea, so I thought I was ready. But I was not ready, including foods, which, might be very surprising to a lot of people.
Uh-huh.
Honestly, it took me a while to like a lot of the things, but
Mm.
after
Mm.
15 or, whatever years, I pretty much eat anything over here.
Yeah.
So whoever wants to try out Korea, if they want to come out here and play for an orchestra, they have to have an open mind about a lot of things.
Mm.
It
Mm.
if you think that you know the right way and there's only one way, then you're in for a big surprise because
Yeah.
it's just really work differently, as I'm sure you know.
Yeah.
Other culture shocks, just of course, you have to be much more polite to the older players. Thing
Ah.
about age. You cannot just
Okay.
tell your colleague that's much older than you openly, don't do this, don't do that.
Mm.
You have to be careful, and you just have to be sensitive. You have to be aware that Koreans are also a bit sensitive about foreigners being in their work.
Okay. Really? Okay.
I mean, there have been questions by reporters of when Chung Myung-hun was our previous music director.
Mm-hmm.
They ask him, well, why are there so many foreigners in the orchestra? you know,
Mm.
things like
Wow.
it would be considered a
Mm.
prejudicial question, I guess, in a state.
Right, yeah.
I think they just
Mm.
ask, and he said, well, shouldn't we be honored that foreigners want to come to our orchestra when we are
I
very
see.
happy that when Koreans make it into, I don't know, Berlin Philharmonic or in the.
Oh, that's true. Hmm.
But there is a bit of sensitivity if the orchestra is maybe too many foreigners. They get.
Hmm. They don't feel like it's like a Korean orchestra or something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Before we move on to a more sad topic like the pandemic, do you have any like career highlights that you would like to share, or like any moments while you're in Seoul or Daejeon that you still remember, like as like you feel kind of proud? Yeah.
Well, everybody loves tours, right? Going to
Yeah. Yeah.
playing in Royal Albert Hall for the proms. Of course, everybody will remember that.
Yeah.
I am happy about our recordings for Deutsche Grammophon. We did, I think, 9 or 10 with
Wow.
John. Mahler
Yeah.
2 is one of my favorites. Mahler 9, which is devilishly fast third movement. It's
Yeah.
I didn't play first on that one, but Beethoven 9 and such. So I'm happy about the recordings, having something to
Mm.
remember and listen.
Yeah.
I got to play Auf dem Strom with Bostrich, Ian Bostrich. So
Oh.
that was special. In general, I don't know. I don't think of highlights so much. I just try to get better.
Well, that's the ultimate attitude that we should all have. So, the second half of this interview that we want to, touch upon is the COVID-19 and how it's affecting performances. Many orchestras here are considering either cutting out entire seasons or just, really, really cutting down to the bare bones and only conducting very small ensembles or chamber ensembles to fill up their season as long as, until full audiences can come back and full orchestra can come back on stage. But I know that I've heard that many orchestras in Korea, including Daejeon and Seoul, are slowly coming back to regular performances. Could you just tell us like how the management is handling that and like what kind of rules are in place and whether musicians feel safe to show up to work and whatnot?
Yeah. So first we have to talk about the fundamental difference in funding, which is difference between endowment-based, donation-based orchestra like an American one, and a state or city-funded orchestra like ours. Basically, if you don't play concerts in America, you're losing a lot of money.
Right.
A big chunk of it comes from ticket sales. However, I feel it's almost the opposite in Korea. If we play more concerts, the serious concerts with big stars, it just costs the city a lot more.
Okay.
Big difference. And who do we play for? Okay, we play for our audience, obviously. But because the money comes from the city, they also sort of dictate of what we should be playing. Not exactly.
I
They
see.
will ask us, can you do a fundraiser concert for coronavirus? Or support the health workers? And when the pandemic started, and it started here kind of earlier than,
Right.
Korea was the second hardest hit country. And so, yeah, we went on immediate slowdown, where we didn't play for about a month.
Okay.
But fortunately, we don't have this existential fear of losing our jobs. Not quite. I think we know that the city wouldn't just let us all go right away. Which I feel so bad for my American colleagues right now. I just can't fathom all of a sudden not having work after collecting
Yeah.
serious salary and expenses. I feel terrible.
Yeah.
So we didn't play for a month, and then slowly we started playing online concerts.
I wanted to clarify, when you mention online concerts, are you saying like the orchestra is performing on stage without an audience?
Yes.
I see.
So
Okay.
the first concert was in our rehearsal room,
Okay.
and then we just went to Lotte Hall, which is like one of the better halls, and we had a full film crew and great sound guys, and it would be live
Yeah.
on YouTube or Facebook or the local neighbor, which is the local Google. But people were asked to volunteer if they felt comfortable to play. So it
Okay.
was a small. At first, people were quite scared. So the orchestra is trying to figure out as we go along. And so we played this concert, the Brahms 3, and then next month it was, sorry, not Brahms, Beethoven, and then we did Beethoven 5. And then we would reach, I don't know, from 6 to 10,000 people through the online concert.
Wow, that's not bad at all. That's great, actually.
And that's what I'm saying. The money comes, the funding comes from city and some private sponsorship, but you don't have to be afraid that the audience is not there and you're still performing. And that's something that I personally, when it all started, I was just thinking about how do we stay relevant when we are forced to not play, and when people will be afraid to come back to the hall. And that's very much happening here. We started opening up the hall, and we played. What do you play? A Mahler 4-chamber version, which is it's crazy, just one horn.
Yeah.
And the audience was now allowed to come in. I think in Korea you have to check in nowadays with your cell phone to make sure if there's an outbreak they can track everybody that was in the vicinity and they can go to quarantine. So the government is very much more involved in the whole process, and that's why I think the number has been kept quite a bit lower than anywhere else, because the government has that power, and also the people trust the government. That's, I think, a huge difference. The trust that they are doing the best they can. And at first I was kind of skeptical. I was like, well, why do we need to do all these things? People are, I was watching some Czech TV, and a doctor there said, oh, you don't need masks. And so I thought, well, this is a doctor saying that. And my wife told me basically, well, the government better do more than they have to just to make sure that it's under control, and they're really trying their best. But when I hear people just say it's a hoax or it's not really anything, it just makes my head go. I just don't understand. How did they not see Italy, or how did they? Is that not enough evidence for you that this is a serious threat?
It's not just like, oh, I want to come back to work as soon as possible, or I want to just be able to start performing. It goes beyond that, right? And it's something that until a vaccine can be mass produced, it's something that we'll just have to live with, and figure out a way how to deal with it.
I wish American orchestras could go that route and would perform these online concerts, with small ensemble. It doesn't have to be necessarily chamber. I think there was a study done in Vienna with the Vienna Philharmonic guys where they measured, the air,
The aerosol, yeah, yeah,
and they discovered it's really not going very far and
right.
not risking so much. As long as people wear masks when they come in and out, wash their hands, I think you're minimizing the risks quite a bit. Of course,
Yeah.
the risk still exists.
It's still there. Yeah, it will always be there. It will never be zero unless you're actually.
The
stay
mask
home.
is not 100% proof thing. The
Mm.
virus can get
Mhm.
through it, but it's all about percentages, isn't it?
Yeah.
And
That's
so
right.
yes, we are taking somewhat of a risk performing in that group. I think it's important to keep the music going somehow, even if it's for reduced audience or even if it's an online concert only. And I hope that's not just about money and endowment preservation. That it's if you let it all go right now, then you might have really hard time bringing everybody back, including the money. So it's kind of an investment if you are
Right.
thinking of it this way.
Right. So at right now, how often does Seoul Philharmonic perform now? How many concerts per?
Per
We are at
weekend.
work a lot, and it's not
Really?
it's not just concerts. We have been doing recordings for like a school. I don't know. I don't want to say book, but it's like an accompanying video to studying about music for like second or third graders.
Oh
So
wow.
we have been recording, and our normal schedule when we were, before coronavirus, would be one or two. We don't do 3 shows of the same concert. Big part of our work is to go out and do so-called outreach concerts, and hospitals, going to handicapped children's schools,
Oh wow.
just going to old people's homes and not homes. So I mean like retirement home,
Yeah.
where we try to bring the music to the people with a quintet, and you play just kind of light quintet music or brass quintet with a quintet and a lot of string playing. That's what the city wants us to go do.
It seems like, like outreach concerts, like you mentioned, is a big part of the orchestra season in addition to the traditional masterworks or classical series. How is the perception of musicians, orchestra musicians or classical musicians in Korea? Like if you were to introduce yourself as like, oh, I play in the Seoul Philharmonic or I am a classical musician and blah, blah, like what are people's perception of you in general?
Well, this is a great question because I've had that question in a taxi cab all the time. The taxi drivers like to ask you where you're from and what you do. And
Yeah.
if I say Seoul Philharmonic Orchestra, they mostly know. They
Yeah.
recognize our group, and quite a few of them mentioned the name of our previous chief conductor because he was
Oh, wow.
a musical celebrity. When he was younger, he won, I think it was the second prize at the Tchaikovsky without first.
The piano, right?
Yeah, and it was such a big thing for the really generally the first Korean to win a big prize. They give him a parade. For the older generation, he's definitely a person that they know, and profile within Seoul is high enough that people are recognizing us as a Seoul Philharmonic.
I see.
I don't feel any negative feelings towards the Seoul Phil.
I think what you mentioned about like going out to the public and really making like a tangible impact and tangible contact with the community is really, really important to stay relevant for any orchestra to stay relevant.
Right. Yeah, I think that the fact that we also went on some tours and we were on the news a bunch,
Yeah.
presenting Korea outside, I think people are aware. Our
Yeah.
audience in general, and you can correct me, seems to be much younger than European or.
Oh. Okay.
Play with us. You played Mahler once.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, one summer.
So I'm sure you had a look into the audience. It seems like we have generally a younger audience, but at the same time, I don't think we have so many full-time subscribers, like the hardcore fans that will keep on coming year after year. The classical music is still an imported music.
Right.
We're just making sure that we build our audience for the big concerts as well, and it's just a long road to make sure people want to come hear us.
I mean, I really enjoyed my time playing as a substitute guest musician in Seoul Philharmonic. I believe it was with Eschenbach, and we played Till and Mahler 1, and I mean, yeah, the rehearsals were just slightly longer than what normal American orchestras would, but I thoroughly enjoyed that whole experience. And it was honestly, personally, it was exciting for me because it was my first time actually like playing in my home country. I left South Korea when I was 11, and being able to go back and play professionally there was not surreal, but certainly a rewarding experience for sure.
I totally know how I feel when I got a chance to play with Czech Phil.
Uh-huh.
One time I played with Czech Philharmonic, and that was the same feeling. You're coming
Yeah.
and getting to what is considered the top ensemble of the country. It was
Right.
yeah.
Are the horn section and I guess wind players in general, is the whole orchestra just is still doing social distancing?
In the beginning, we were sitting very far away. And I think
Yeah.
gradually we got a little bit closer, and it's yes, we sit more apart, but at the same time, it's not a huge distance. But
Okay.
the string players have their own stand, so they're not like right next to the stand part. It's just fun for the page turns. It's not usually, it's two horns or such. So we do have our space. Of course, the danger
Yeah.
is when the break happens and people start talking. That's
Right.
dangerous. So
I mean, in Korea also, like the testing is much more robust.
you
Than,
can just go get
in the
tested
States.
anytime you want, and it doesn't
Yeah.
cost you. When I see the numbers coming out of the States, I can't believe it. Here,
Right.
you have a very smart healthcare system. You're insured and prices are dictated. So the hospital cannot charge you just 30,000 for doing something that should cost only, I don't know, $1,000.
Right.
So there's a cap, so it doesn't get out of hand, which is really important.
Yeah.
On top of that, you have government mandated insurance, which is not the same as in Europe, where in Europe it can cover basically everything, right? You go to a
Yeah,
country, you
right.
don't pay a cent. You go
Right.
for a serious operation, you don't pay anything. Here, you're still expected to pay, and the government covers about 50% of everything.
Okay.
Now, if your disease is quite specific or like unusual and very expensive, there's also a cap of how much, so it wouldn't
Out of
bankrupt you
pocket.
basically.
Right.
On top of that, the test, if you're suspected of maybe being next to somebody who could have had coronavirus, you get tested for free. You don't pay anything.
Yeah.
And I think it's a huge difference. Some people just can't go into a hospital in America.
Yeah, because they're so scared of the cost.
And
Yeah,
that's worse because you can
Yeah.
infect more people if you don't know that you are.
that's
carrying.
right.
So yeah, that part is a great part about Korea.
Yeah.
If there are any horn players or anybody watching this and are thinking of going to Asia, I think 80 or 90% of the time you can feel very lucky to be in a place like this where you don't have to feel like
Yeah.
your life is threatened by this virus.
No, that's great to hear.
Yeah, from the financial point of view also.
Right.
Your livelihood, that's what I meant to say, livelihood.
It's hard to equate American style of orchestra management and Korean management of orchestras. Partially, like you said, is one is more publicly funded, the other one is more driven by patronship and donorship. So yeah, those are very two different things, but at times like this, it's really, at least people feel more secure, not only about their jobs but also just about their health in general, to just be able to not worry about those things. I think that's really important, and I am a little bit jealous that I'm not in Korea, but
Life
Well,
is
if
life.
you do fly
and-
in, you have to go to a mandatory 2-week quarantine, which is difficult because you cannot step out of your house. Literally,
yeah.
take a foot out of the front door. And our chief conductor and the conductor that's conducting us this week, they went through 2 weeks just so they can play with us, and
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
admire that. Being locked up for 2 weeks is maybe
Yeah.
he'll have to do it again if he comes back in August. So
There's always a balance, and you always have to kind of measure how much the public is willing to participate. I think, like you said, it doesn't matter how much the government wants to do things, as long as ultimately it's a group effort. And if you just think about it just a little bit outside of just your job and your own agendas, in your life. Everybody wants to go back to work. Nobody wants to stay home and collect unemployment insurance in the States. I mean, people do want to work. They want to go out and not just to enjoy life, but to actually contribute to society in a meaningful way. And I think in order to be able to do that, I think, Korea does set a very good example. You do need some group effort and group participation and level of trust between people. And at the same time, yes, like you need to also take individual precautions and, hopefully that way, we can all live with coronavirus. Yeah, in a smart, safe way. So, and thank you so much for all of your opinions and comments and insight on this matter. I mean, I learned a lot, not just about you, but just about what's going on as even as a musician living in Korea. So I hope this content, hopefully will help other musicians outside of Korea to kind of gauge, what's going on, and maybe we can learn from these lessons and also just take into account and what we could do and how to be better ourselves.
If there are people interested about in jobs in Korea and they want to know how it works over here, they can just contact me. It's
Yes.
difficult to get a job here like it is anywhere else.
Hmm.
But for
Of
horn
course.
players, for principal horn players, the market is open and it might be a slightly easier to win a job here than in the States. It's a good
Mhm.
option if you really love music and that's what you care about. You don't care the country you live in.
Yeah.
Korea is good that way.
Any just final last words that you just want to kind of summarize, or anything that you wanted to
The final thing, the final idea is that we are all suffering right now, and I know especially in the States, musicians are having a very, very hard time. The gigs dried up.
Mhm.
Orchestras are not paying what they're supposed to. So I just hope they get through this time. They find the strength, love of their family and friends, and I hope it just gets better as soon as possible. That's just hope. That's it.
Yeah, thank you for lending your time. It's quite late in Korea, but I really, really appreciate your willingness to participate in this interview with me. And yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks.
Take care. Have a good night. Sleep well.
Bye bye.